My name is Sina Plagencool. I'll be your host today. Wanted to let everybody know this is a very special episode because this is our National Farmers Market Week episode. But I want to introduce you to our guest, which is Jesse Preiner, who is a mayor, a board member, and a farmer. And then Thom Petersen, our commissioner for the Department of Agriculture. So welcome to Farm to Market, the podcast. Jesse, I just wanted to start off by thanking you for letting us into your home and your beautiful farm. It's a beautiful summer day and it's just really special. So thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. This is Farm to Market. We want to offer perspective from our farmers, from the consumer side, and also from the market itself, right? So let's just start off and talk about your farming life, Jesse. So tell us a little bit about your farm and a little bit about your history.
So I've been at this location for about 20 years, Sina.
Mm-hmm.
My parents and my brothers and sisters and I developed and built the original Trout Air about 2 miles that direction.
That's the name that's on the market.
Yep, that was the original. And one way to market our trout that we began growing in the late 60s, early 70s was to go to the farmers market and sell fresh trout and smoked trout. So that fell to me. Of course, I had black curly hair in those days. It was different. and I learned to do it well, and I learned to enjoy it. So as 38 or 40 years went by and our lives changed, we sold the property, we developed and did this and that. I moved to this farm and built some small trout ponds so I could be able to keep doing it. It's a good weekend, Thursday to smoke the fish, sell them on Saturday and Sunday. It's a good thing to keep me out of trouble on the weekends. And I know how to do it and I enjoy it. So that's a little bit of my history. I've enjoyed recently the resurgence of farm to market, or actually Trout Air was one of the first farm to markets before it was even coined. And we did it for years and years and years. So now my customers are grandchildren of the original people I used to take care of back in the 70s.
Wow.
So the big wheel keeps turning and the market keeps going, and every weekend we've been very busy the last 2 years. Once we got through the COVID stuff, last year was very good. This year was very good. And so I'm pleased to do it as long as I can. It's a fun thing. It's a social thing. It's business. It's social. It's good entertainment.
Right. And honestly, Jesse, at our market, you are a celebrity. If you're not there, they're like, where's the fish guy? You can call your business any name, but you are the fish guy.
The fish guy.
At our
All right.
market. So talk about the rebranding. So we're Trout Air, and now we are
the Trout Monger. So 2.5 years ago. So there was always Trout Air went away, but everybody knew Trout Air either from going to the restaurant or going fishing or going to a concert. And it was located right on 35, so everyone saw it. And we had a 40-foot giant trout at the driveway, so everybody knew about it. However, that went away.
Where is that? I would like that at the market.
I know where it is. And someday I'll tell you the story. His marketing program is amazing. But anyway, so we decided, like you said, my name is, or Trout Air name is still on the bracket at the market on my stall, but Trout Air has gone away. So,
but the trout is the same.
The trout, same.
Is prepared the same way.
Yep, same recipe we've used for 38 or 40 years, and still me doing it.
Yeah.
I do it all myself. It's a one-man show, and I'm the man.
Yes, you are.
But then like about 3 or 4 years ago, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, Joe said, we have to get branding so that I get my own identity.
Yes.
So he came up with a really good Trout Monger, and people really respond to it well.
Yeah.
So we redid the truck, we redid our stand at the market, we redid all of our brochures. We have an online presence and a website and everything that goes with that. So it's all worked out, and it's worked out well.
I love that. Your business is still true to who you are, but you're evolving and changing with the times.
Yes.
And also, people are accessing the trout in different ways now too.
Yep. They can order online. They can come out here and pick them up. They can get them at the market. We can ship the smoked trout and the fresh trout in the wintertime.
Wow.
So I think that's all come out of COVID. Everybody's learned to shop. You can buy anything online.
Right.
The dog thinks the UPS guy lives here because he comes every single day.
Oh, jeez. It is a different world, isn't it?
Yep.
So, Commissioner Thom, you have an extensive history as a farmer as well. So do you want to go a little bit and tell us more about that?
Yeah,
Being a farmer?
thanks, and it's great to be here. And I too remember as a young man going to Trout Air, and it was quite the destination. You know, back in the day, had the big sign right on 35, and it really cool to see how this has evolved, and you know, such a neat story. And you know, I've had a little different journey with agriculture, is that I've been in the horse business for all my life, and really started as a young man with my family, and kind of fit well for politics because I basically was a horse trader, you know, and bought and sold horses. And then along the way, I started, you know, keeping livestock, whether it was cattle or goats were my bigger thing that I had for many years, and then raised crops and everything else. So now I just have more of a hobby farm, and as I've, you know, done more work in my professional life, like lobbying and cuts into it, but really focused on that business. But it still helps, you know. I still go to the auction barn, you know, a couple times a week. I go into the feed mill, you know, every week, and so it really keeps you right connected to everybody and
I was
everything.
just going to say that probably gives you a little extra with our farmers to know that you know exactly what they're going through.
Exactly. And I think when you're out and about and you stop too, you'll get like firsthand, you know, what's going on, or people will tell you, you know, and it just helps in the job for sure.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. So, you know, as we view farming and the culture surrounding it, what's your view on how that's changed in the past 20 years?
Yeah, it's really interesting. In Minnesota, we have about 67,400 farms in Minnesota.
Okay, say that again.
67,400 farms.
Whew,
but if you think about it, our population is about 5.7 million people. So farms like Jesse's, they can take a lot of different shapes and sizes, or mine. To be a farmer in Minnesota, you need to have or by the USDA definition, is $1,000 worth of gross income. So it's a pretty low threshold.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the amount of food we produce for everybody, it's really different. But it's really evolved. We've had a lot of consolidation in commodity agriculture across the state, and I think that's hard to see. But we still, you know, 99% of our farms in Minnesota are family owned. We do have like a corporate farming law in Minnesota, which limits corporations from farming. One thing we're really excited about at the department, and we have an emerging farmers coordinator, an emerging farmers work group, is really looking at, as Jesse's saying, as agriculture is changing, our population's changing in Minnesota. So how do we address that? How do we create opportunities? And so it's really great to see whether it's our Hmong, Somali, Latino, all these different populations, and then just people being able in COVID to move back to the farm. And maybe start a CSA, or start raising cattle and selling online or at a farmer's market. And so it's exciting to see all the different changes in agriculture right now.
Yeah, a lot like what Jesse said. You know, he's been at this market for so long, and our farmers market's been around since 1876. So you'll find that there's generations, like fifth generation farmer at our market. But a lot of people, with Jesse, for example, he's a mayor, so he talks to everyone. But his neighbor is a Hmong farmer. His neighbor next to him is a pig farmer, and across from him is a person that does crafts. So he's in a space where he gets to kind of touch every type of vendor at our market. And one thing that is interesting for our market is that most of our vegetable growers, the majority is actually Hmong farmers. And so it's I want to know if, you know, the Department of Agriculture, you know, what they're doing to uplift them as a community. And it's great to hear that you have a section of your work dedicated to that. And that will continue, sounds like it will continue to grow with other communities, like the Latinx community, the African community. So So tell me just a little, let's dive deep a little bit more into that and kind of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and the Hmong growers are a great example. I feel like I've worked with them for, maybe 20 years. They've been here a long time.
A long time.
And, many of them are second, third generation now farmers. And so it's really interesting to see. But we really need to look at our agency as how we reach out to people. Where do they get the information? We have good grants and loan programs. But, we advertise on different farm networks and things like that. Those weren't maybe where our Hmong or other growers or new growers were looking, and so we have to get out in those different communities and really shape how we're communicating with them is kind of our first thing. And then also our, translation services is a big thing that we've been working on within our department. But we do have not that farmers need loans, but we have very good loans. And so we have micro loan programs. We have beginning farmer loans. And so we just passed a down payment assistance program to really help some of those newer farmers hopefully be able to get into farms, whatnot too as well. We have a beginning farmer tax credit that helps farmers that are buying or purchasing land, and a farm link system helps people find farms or rent land and different things. So it's just really, and then I mentioned our emerging farmers work group that we have that's led by our Commissioner Bailey, that really looks at all the different programs and things that we can do to try to help those farmers. And so, but all the things we have, whether it's Minnesota Grown or our urban agriculture grants, there's just a lot of things that our legislature has blessed us with to give us some tools to try to help those farmers.
Well, that's great because, the work that you're doing is going to trickle down to our market. That will give us new farmers, and we have space for it, right, Jesse, with how things are changing, and we have over 170 stalls. And if there's a way for us to, get somebody in the door that's new in farming with your help, I think we can do it. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other changes. Jesse, with your farm, you want to talk a little bit about your solar power?
Oh, sure. So 6 or 7 years ago, I installed 3 rows of solar panels, and it was a program through the USDA, and it powers the aerators and the pumps and everything to do with the fish business. So it's worked with no problem for all of those years. And on a nice sunny day like today, it's really producing, and it really has a substantial impact on my electric bill, which could go from $700-800 down to $80 or $100. So in the summer, it's wonderful. On the short, dark days of December, it's not quite so good, but that's the way it goes. So that has been really beneficial. And
because for farmers right now, as a market manager, we're the first ones there, the last one to leave. So small talk is going to happen. And what I'm hearing a lot is that for all you all, it's just getting really expensive.
Yes. Well, everything. Gas is $5 a gallon. It used to be $2. Shipping is up. Feed prices are up. Commodities are up. Everything is up. So I suppose that makes that more valuable to me now than ever because you have to have water to have fish.
Exactly. So, let's kind of go into that a little bit. So, it's really expensive to be a farmer right now. Let's talk a little bit more. And Commissioner, you can kind of also tell, because you visit how many different farms do you visit on a regular basis? I keep a map on the wall of my office, and I write down every town I visit and every farm so that I can kind of see. But it's a lot. I try, because I think it's important. Like, I try not to just drive to Fargo, for a meeting and back. I try to throw in a farm visit or two, and every farm's different. I don't care what people say. It looks like they have just raised corn and soybeans, or they just a dairy farm, or they're just a vegetable farm. Every farm has a different story, and it's so interesting to see what that is. And so, it's great to see all the different ones across the state. So I visit a lot every year, but that does give you that firsthand,
look at what's really going on out there. And so I think that, helps me make those decisions that I have to make every day.
I love that.
May I interrupt? So
Go ahead.
as you visit, are you feeling a little bit of optimism?
This year, yes. And I'd say, we talk about the input prices being extremely high, but the prices farmers are getting are also high. And so I think that's where it comes down to farmers, I've always been kind of a financially conservative person, because I've lived through those years on my farm where I didn't do so good. And so I think that's where, farmers have to look at, how do I cut costs to really make some money right now? And one of the things I see is a good thing is soil health, is that farmers, that's a big buzzword. And I see it from our vegetable farmers using cover crops and building their soil all the way up to our largest farms, that they're, cutting the use of their synthetic fertilizers and other things by, trying to manage their costs right now. And so whatever you can do, less tillage, so you're not running across the field and using as much fuel, all those type of things also benefit the environment. So so you do see a lot of good things too. And so there's optimism of that, as long as those prices stay up. But if if those prices fall with the inputs, then we're going to have some issues.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see kind of how our farmers kind of pivot when there's challenges that arises. One of our cattle farmers practices regenerative agriculture, and so there's a field that she's able to bring her cattle to graze. It's private, and it's just cool to see kind of almost her going back in time, right? There's like a period where everybody was spraying everything or just trying to do fast crops, but now our farmers are really going back to these old practices, and it's really amazing to see.
And I see at the market that customers appreciate that. She's busy.
Yeah.
And they all are paying a good price, but it's a good product. And no chemical, no fertilizer, no hormones, no this, no that.
I think, I always say, like, there's a lot of good and bad things about social media, but I think that social media has really given people that want to know, which is a lot of the population want to know how their food's raised, and they want to know, like, the story about the farmer. They want to know what they're doing. And so, seeing those farmers that do a great job telling their story or using social media, I think that really helps a lot too. And so it's very interesting. And then farmers learn from other farmers that are doing that or using that. So I think that's a positive. And you see that with, vendors that I know at the farmers market. Jesse has, a good social media page or different things. And so it's neat for me to see that too, as well as a commissioner.
Yeah. I mean, with the farmers market, coming from a customer's perspective, living in the city as well, you just are taught and raised in this world that you have access to everything all the time, right? And then you come to the farmers market and it's a total different experience than just going to a grocery store. You get to actually learn how your food is prepared or grown and treated. And you actually get to talk to someone, right? And that's the beauty of it. And this is why we have Farm to Market, the podcast, because at the farmers market, especially ours, I mean, people are shoulder to shoulder. You only get 2 seconds with Jesse, as most people know, because he's so busy.
Quick.
Right. But the purpose of this is really just to have like a deeper connection and understanding of all the hard work, right? You were talking about paying $1 for a tray of tomatoes, but like what did it take to get that $1 tray of potatoes, right? Like, I want our customers to understand the value in that. So that's what my goal is for communicating with our audience for National Farmers Market Week and why we're also celebrating it. But I want to hear from Jesse why he thinks it's important for us to celebrate National Farmers Market Week. And then you too.
Well, because it's been going on for 100 and how many years?
Lots.
150 years at our market, especially. And people are tuning in more to market life, what it takes, how to do it, and more focus on it. I think last year you had celebrated on a smaller scale, and the customers really responded well. They really enjoyed everything that Cena had done, and I think this year is going to be, by the looks of it, more things planned.
Yeah, big show.
And the commissioner's coming down, so he could shake everybody's hand. But seriously, it's a big part of the city people's life.
Yeah.
If they can come, people come every Saturday, some come every other Saturday, some come Saturday and Sunday, and it's a big part of their existence. They get to see where things come from.
Yeah.
They get to have good relationships with lots of people who know, a lot of farmers who know a lot of things many of these people don't. And to put emphasis on it, I think is good. So I thank you in advance, because I know it's a lot of work. But I think it's a big deal.
It really is.
Hold it. And also, when I started, there was like 4 farmers markets. Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Luke's Church was a satellite, and I think Harmar Mall or something had one in the parking lot. So now how many are there in the state?
Yeah,
Well, in
hundreds.
Minneapolis alone, there's over 20.
So that's all changed. So it has become a bigger part of more people's lives. And to throw the spotlight on it, I think is great.
Yeah. And, you know, with the Minneapolis Farmers Market, with being around for about 150 years, there has been times where we've had to protect that space for food access. We had to make it known that we are important. We are essential, for example, during the pandemic. So can you tell me, Commissioner, a little bit why you think National Farmers Market Week is important and why we should celebrate?
Yeah, I just so important. As we say in Minnesota, hundreds of farmers markets. We kind of talk about, we have our Minnesota Grown program, and we have almost 200 markets listed in there. And then there's, many that aren't, and so, but they all tell such a good story. One of my favorite things as I drive around Minnesota is to stop at farmers markets. I've stopped at 8 so far this year. My goal is to get to at least 15 every year, and every market's different. I love the big markets like
kind of like
Minneapolis.
the farms,
it's like,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And some maybe have like my in Pine City has 5 vendors, but there's always something neat and unique there. But I also love the power that I have to use my dollar to support farmers that I want to support. And I it makes me feel good as a person. There's something to that, that I'm supporting a farmer with my own dollar. It's going direct to that person, direct into that community. But at the same time, you're getting fresh food that tastes good,
and healthy.
And healthy. And I always say my kids are the best barometers on that, because they like eggs, carrots, different we have chicken that we buy from one vendor that it tastes different.
It does.
That it's that they almost get where that's what they want all the time. They don't like sometimes when we have to go to a Walmart or something, that's the only grocery store we have in Pine City, for example. That it is such a great option, but I just love all that it brings. And so it's great that we have a week that we can celebrate it, like Jesse said. And we've seen, I've been able to take part in it a couple of years now as commissioner. And one other thing I just say is, the pandemic has been a pain in everybody's, but it's also provided some good opportunities to transform our food system, that it's really given us an option to look at this local option, whether it's farmers markets or CSA. We saw CSAs sell out in 2020. We've seen a lot of e-commerce and direct marketing really grow. And so that's a positive thing that's come out of the pandemic, as Jesse said.
Yeah, I mean, with our market, we're open 7 days a week, and you just see we're servicing everyone, honestly. Saturday and Sunday, like Jesse has said, is, I call it chaotic joy. It's just crazy, and there's over 100 vendors, and every nook and cranny is full. But then on the weekdays, that's when we have farmers that have CSA pickups, and there's people that, normally couldn't come to the market. Maybe they have health issues, or they can just get what they need still and use their dollars to support not only a local business, but like, as you said, with our farmers, is mostly families, so that is just so special to have the power to choose where your money goes and have pride in that. So thank you, world, for doing that. So let's go back to the commissioner here, and let's talk about, let's talk about these lives. The direct difference in the lives of our farmers. Like, what ways did the Department of Agriculture makes that difference?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Our mission is to, improve, and to build the, for the betterment of farmers, but also do it in a way that helps our environment and is sustainable. And so I think that is very important, and so we look at that as what are our programs and how do they work for Minnesotans. And so we're lucky in Minnesota to have quite a suite of programs, that we have that do help our farmers. And I always want to just say, people can just Google Minnesota Department of Agriculture loans and grants, and you get a list of all the different things we have. Whether it's farm to school is a huge thing that we work with. Many of our growers that sell at farmers markets now are tapping into that farm to school market. I don't think we have trout yet in the going to the local schools, but so many of that's a really good thing. We have a good food access. Really, you talked about food deserts. How even your markets serve that,
we border
and
it.
we really looking around the state, our grocery store situation. I mentioned, in Pine City we have one grocery store and it's a Walmart, but other towns don't have that as much. And so trying to address that. We have, sustainable agriculture grants. We have that help farmers that are, doing different things with berries or trying to grow them different ways. And so all these different things that we try to lift farmers and provide them opportunities. Our Minnesota Grown program is very successful in working too with our farmers markets. You see those signs a lot. That's a very mature program, and it has done very well. And so trying to look at, those types of opportunities. And then I mentioned too, all the different programs we have for beginning farmers and trying to help that out. We also have a program called FarmLink that matches farmers with that are maybe wanting to retire with somebody who wants to start over the business. So you might have a farmer or have a mentors, that you're looking for some advice or somebody to partner with. And then also lists like land for sale and rent, like I said. So whatever we can do. And then we do have a regulatory component as that is important too. One thing we do is pesticide fertilizer enforcement, and that's a really big thing right now for fruit and vegetable growers. We try to be on those cases as much as possible. That's a hard part of the job, is enforcing, but also educating farmers on proper uses of that. And then food safety is another thing that's really important. So we do investigate outbreaks and things like that. So it's a big responsibility, but whatever we can do to help grow our farms in Minnesota. So I think that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, that is important work that you're doing, and it's important that everybody hears that too.
How many people work for the department?
Yeah, about 500 employees work for the department, and we're a smaller agency in the state. And I what I'm really proud of too is that a lot of our employees actually live on farms or come from farms, and so that when they're making decisions, they're making recommendations to me, I know that they have that experience. The pandemic has, allowed some of those people to actually move back to the farm, and telecommute from their jobs. And so I think that's a really good thing. And then our budget is interesting. We were talking about this earlier, but our, in the grand scheme of things, our budget's about less than 1/2% of the state's budget. But when you look at agriculture from top to bottom in Minnesota, it's a real booming part of our economy. So it's an interesting agency, and it's an honor to be the commissioner.
Yeah, and with Minnesota, there's so many wonderful special things about us, and we have wonderful organizations like the University of Minnesota Extension Program, but we also are home to a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So what's your perspective on how they can support us as a farmers market? Also because their employees live and work here too.
Yeah, it's a great conundrum, and you look at Minnesota and you think about what we're home to: Cargill, CHS, Land O'Lakes, Hormel. You can go on and on. Minnesota is like an agricultural powerhouse on the top scale of things. And it's interesting too. I'm actually going to the Philippines here this summer, and trade missions are very important to our part of the job, and that we produce a lot of things here in Minnesota. And I've never been a feed the world type of person that we need to feed the world, but as I've traveled the world, you realize that there's a lot of parts of the world where they don't have enough food, and they cannot produce enough food and the right types of food. And so you try to have to balance that with also building out a local food economy at the same time. And so that to me is how I approach it, is that my goal is to build our local food economy to the strongest port it could be, but we also have to support ways to be able to help feed our population, because I think that is a responsibility in our world. Until you've been with hungry people and seen that, it's a really interesting thing. So I look at the tremendous interest we have, and some people have a hard time with this sometimes and everything, but our larger corporations, our ag corporations, do a lot of work to support our newer farmers, our local food system. I'd point out Cargill in general. People might find that hard to believe, but they do take steps to help different types of agriculture. And so it's not always what you think, but it's a really interesting thing to deal with as commissioner, and I try to look at all of agriculture, and that we need all different types, as long as we're doing it in a way that helps our world and our environment. But it's a great question.
Well, I mean, our farmers need a warm hug from everyone. It's a hard time, and
very true.
Every year it's been a different challenge. With this year, the cold spring and the storms and the infrastructure. I'd like to talk about, I want to talk directly to our listeners. And I want to know what the number one thing that the average consumer must understand about farmers and farmers markets. For me, the value of their dollar is really important. Making sure that you all in the world are setting aside some of your time and your money towards supporting local farmers and local businesses. And it really makes a difference, because it's real people. It's straight. Your dollar is going straight to the person that needs it. And make sure to support us when things aren't always perfect, because our farmers, what I hear is they're always pivoting. There's always challenges that arise. And it's always the regulars that keep them going, that keep them committed to this type of industry. So everybody and every person and every dollar matters at our market. So.
And it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
When you think of planting, weeding, picking, and selling carrots, that's a lot of work. And to have that available, to have good homegrown organic carrots in aisle number 3, I mean, that's a big deal. And it's important for people to remember that. And a lot of questions I get: how come that stall's empty? Why isn't this person here? Well, it's been snowed until, second week of April. Then it was cold ever since. The carrots don't come up when there's snow on the ground. Or if it's been real dry in some areas. South of the cities, I think it's been drier than up here. So anyway, why aren't they here? Because their stuff isn't ready yet. So they've just been waiting. I mean, their income, the farmer's income, has been withheld. And the customers are getting nervous. Why is there an empty stall? Well, it's just not there yet. So when they come, please support everybody, because on Saturday, every stall was full.
Yeah,
it
we
was
had a
like
full
the state
market.
fair.
We welcomed so many vegetable growers back.
But they didn't have a lot of everything. And if they sold it on Saturday, on Sunday, they got to stay in bed. Lucky them. But then it looks like the market isn't quite as full. And it is full. It's just the farmer can only sell what he has to sell. So please, everyone, buy generously and support them, because they're doing all the work and they're not getting the income until they sell it to somebody, put it in their hand. But it's good quality stuff.
It really
I always
is.
say too, just like I was saying earlier, every farmer has a different story, and just the empathy for farmers is something I always try to understand. I mean, and you look at the last couple of years, 2019 we had the wettest year on record in Minnesota.
Yeah.
2020 we had COVID, that farmers had to deal with, and markets changing and everything else. 2021 we had the worst drought we've had since 1988. 2022 we had the latest planting we've had in 20 years. So then everything, you have to pivot, as Jesse knows, and different, that you have to adapt. I always say, like, for myself, my wife and I would always say we're kind of survivors, because we've gone through those years where things were really tough, and then somehow it's like, sometimes I look and say, how did we get to this part, and everything? But you learn from that and you go, but you have to have a little bit of that mentality. So just know that I always think that the farmers I know do everything they can to get to that market, to provide a crop they're proud of. They love talking to the people that come to purchase and visit with them. And, I just think it's a positive thing, but just know that there's always a story behind that person. And it's interesting to try to learn that too as well.
And the farmers market is the perfect place to learn that story. So
Yes. Yeah, there's good entertainment.
You're
It's so much fun. It really is a good time.
all right. Well, that is it. Thank you so much for both of you. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Jesse?
Yes.
Yes. Go
One
for
more thing. So the farmers market, for anybody who doesn't know, is governed by a board of directors and a president. Our president is Bonnie Dean, and she's been president for years.
Many years.
So she knows, I think she was at the market when she was 5 years old, and she's still there. So she knows, like Sina or like you, who's done it a long time, what has to happen. And I really want to say thank you to her and the board members, because that's another thing, another set of meetings every month. What do? We work with Sina, we work with our market manager, Ashley, to keep this circus going, or what? That's not a good description. But anyway,
It can feel that way sometimes.
because there's so many different angles to it, from the farmers to the production to the people when they're double parking on top of each other on Saturday and all of that. And so everybody does a lot of extra work. And I really want to say thank you.
Oh.
Thanks for everybody. And I think the more the public knows about it all, the more they'll appreciate
Right.
what a special thing they have going. But I think they do appreciate it. We're so busy on Saturdays and Sundays that I think they really value what they have.
Yeah.
And my last thought is, since we're running out of time, and since Sina just had her nails done, we're going to skip the fish cleaning contest
Thank you.
I just like to eat the fish.
because I know I would win anyway. So thank you guys for taking the time to come out.
Yeah.
Thank you for appreciating it.
Appreciate
Commissioner,
us, but
thank you for your
yes,
support for the market
absolutely.
and all the farm stuff besides. And we'll see you actually on the Saturday. What's the date of that?
August 13th for National
forward to
Farmers
it.
Market
Yep.
Week.
So you can make an in-person appearance and we'll get your autograph and shake your hand.
Awesome.
So,
Love it.
and that's it for me.
All right. Well, thank you all again. And
Thank you.
that concludes Farm to Market.
Farm to Market is a collaboration between the Minneapolis Farmers Market and Gleam Tower Media. The market is now open daily from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m., rain or shine, until October 31st. Follow us on social media to learn more about seasonal offerings at the market, or visit our website to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. All these links will be in the description below. If you enjoyed the show, we ask that you please leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, make sure you're subscribed on these platforms to catch future episodes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again soon.